I wasn't supposed to be in the program. That's what the official list said, what the glossy brochure handed out at every folding chair on the lawn confirmed. I searched 3 times, tracing each line with my finger like a child looking for her name on a birthday card. It wasn't there. But hers was Abigail Hastings, Marketing and Brand Innovation with Distinction. Honors Cord noted my sister, who hadn't been enrolled since January, who had been quietly dismissed for academic dishonesty, low GPA, and what the student board called patterns of unverified documentation. She'd lied, she'd forged papers, and somehow she was still sitting near the front in a white robe. Her curls perfect, her lips glossed. My parents waved at her empty chair like she was backstage preparing to walk. I stood behind the last row, my gown wrinkled from being packed in a $7 garment bag. My hair was pinned up with 2 broken bobby pins. The chancellor's medal sat folded in an envelope inside my tote. They told me it would be announced, live. No prior mention, not even in the program. That morning, I'd eaten half a banana and washed it down with cold coffee. I had slept 3 hours the night before, finishing a final code review for a faculty-led research project on infrastructure decay in coastal bridges. It was already archived online under my name. The dean stepped up to the podium with a clipboard I hadn't seen before. He cleared his throat. "We have a correction before we proceed. One of our previously listed candidates, Abigail Hastings, is not eligible for graduation." Gasps spread like wind through dry leaves. I didn't look toward my parents. I didn't have to. I felt it. The freeze in the air around their row, the halt of clapping the small sounds people make when someone's mirror shatters in public. Then the chancellor stepped forward, but excellence often lives in quiet places. Her voice cut through the silence like a clean blade. "Please join me in recognizing engineering senior Claire, Hastings recipient of the Chancellor's Medal for Academic Resilience." And just like that, they turned to face the daughter they never expected to walk the aisle. It started long before college. In our house, there was no loud announcement of favoritism, no shouting matches or cruel ultimatums, just quiet decisions always leaning in one direction. Abigail got her acceptance to Lindale University, first early admission marketing track, full ride, no but. That didn't matter. My parents celebrated like she'd cured something. They ordered matching sweatshirts. My father reactivated his Facebook just to post the news. When I got mine 2 weeks later, a full scholarship to Whitmore's engineering program, my mother smiled politely and said, "That's wonderful, Claire. You always were so resourceful." That was the first time she used that word, resourceful. It became their reason for everything when they drained the college fund on Abigail's freshman housing deposit. They said I wouldn't need it. My tuition was covered. When Abigail called home, panicked over textbook costs, my father wired money that same afternoon. When I mentioned the $85 course fee for access to the simulation lab, my mother blinked and said, "Maybe your department has a grant." They always found ways to fund her needs. For mine, they found ways around them. Abigail called home twice a day. She'd FaceTime from rooftop parties, from Greek mixers, from study abroad, interest sessions she never attended. She never asked how I was doing. She didn't have to. I had already become the backdrop. By my sophomore year, I was working 3 part-time jobs, tutoring undergrads in Calculus 3, running inventory for the campus bookstore, and hosting late-night segments at the university radio station. I ate whatever was on clearance in the dining hall, or what could be reheated on my contraband hot plate. My dorm roommate once asked why I set my alarm at 4:55 a.m. Because the data server is empty before 6, I told her. And I need quiet to run code. When I did call home, I made my updates short. Abigail had more interesting things to say anyway. I once told them I'd co-authored a paper on fault-tolerant load-bearing frameworks for climate-vulnerable bridges. My father said, "That sounds complicated." "Hey, did you see Abigail's new internship?" Her boss said she's a natural resourceful. 2 different daughters, 2 different languages. They didn't see the hours. The hours I stood outside career fairs I wasn't invited to. The hours I spent debugging infrastructure models on borrowed equipment. The hours I sat alone in dark labs because my housing didn't renew and I couldn't afford a deposit. My mother sent Abigail new heels for her capstone showcase. She sent me a thumbs-up emoji when I emailed about getting published in the Whitmore Civil Engineering Review. The truth is, I never expected equal treatment. I just wanted acknowledgement. But that doesn't grow in the soil of families like mine. Not when one child shines loud and the other works quiet. It took me until junior year to stop waiting for praise. I printed my own certificate of the publication, laminated it, and pinned it behind my desk lamp. On days I didn't have food, I'd stare at it like proof I existed. That spring, I passed Abigail in the student center. She didn't see me. She was laughing with friends, holding an oversized iced coffee. Her nails glittered in the sun. She said something like, "My sister's still in engineering, like actual math. It's wild." They all laughed. I didn't stop walking. I had a lab to open, a network to train a bridge to hold, even if nobody else noticed it was cracking. By senior year, I had stopped trying to catch anyone's attention, especially theirs. My world shrank into clean routines: the morning walk from the commuter lot, the coffee machine in the engineering hall that sputtered before 8 a.m., the third computer terminal from the left in the structural modeling lab, the only one that didn't crash during neural net runs. I kept a notebook filled with hand calculations, one that smelled faintly of printer toner and sleepless nights. It never left my bag. It wasn't sentimental. It was armor. On the inside flap, I taped a post-it I'd written my first semester. "Earn the dawn." I don't remember where I got the phrase, maybe from a podcast, maybe I made it up, but it became my spine. When the sky turned pale blue and the rest of the campus slept, I'd be hunched over load charts and failure graphs chasing a degree. Nobody expected me to finish. Professor Reed was the only one who noticed. She taught advanced structural systems with the kind of calm that felt earned. One evening after a colloquium where I presented my work on fracture detection in coastal pylons, she pressed a folded note into my backpack without saying a word. I found it hours later, buried between power bars and class rubrics. "You are the quiet engine of progress. Keep building, IR." I read it once, then again, and then slid it behind my post-it. That night, I stayed in the lab until 2:40 a.m., eating dry cereal from a Ziploc and running simulations until the motion sensor lights flicked off. I waved my arms to turn them back on. It felt like the room understood me better than people ever had. Meanwhile, Abigail uploaded a filtered photo of a frozen margarita with the caption, "Spring break is a mindset." I saw it only because a mutual friend tagged her. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known where she was. The next morning, I walked into the machine lab, wet shoes squeaking on concrete. I had just learned that our bridge model had taken first prize at the Midwest Civil Systems Conference. The faculty team nominated it for a national research track. I forwarded the email to my parents. My mother replied with a single sentence, "I'm sure that'll look great on your resume." Abigail posted a video of herself dancing barefoot on a beach patio. Later that week, I overheard two faculty members discussing a university grant Abigail had supposedly received for a marketing capstone. Except the course she referenced didn't exist. The professor had left the department 2 semesters prior. It didn't take long to uncover more. She had forged summer enrollment forms again, emailed doctored screenshots of tuition receipts to my parents, and had the refund rerouted to her own account. With it, she rented a vacation house on the Emerald Coast. She didn't even hide it well. A friend's photo caught her holding a drink with a slice of watermelon the size of her face, standing on a balcony with ocean wind in her hair. That same day, I was in the sub-level lab, hands covered in graphite dust, adjusting load cells with a wrench that kept slipping. My back ached. My stomach churned from too much vending machine trail mix. I closed the window on her image, not in anger, just to protect my focus. I didn't tell our parents. I didn't report her. I was tired. And tired, I had learned, wasn't the same as broken. The medal announcement came 2 weeks later, an email with no subject line. "Claire Hastings will receive the Chancellor's Medal for Academic Resilience. Presentation is scheduled for commencement. Please do not publicize." I read it 3 times, then I clicked archive. It wasn't disbelief, it was something colder, something more precise. I had already built the bridge. Now they could decide if they wanted to walk across it or not. The email came quietly. No fanfare, no emoji, no accidental CC to the family group thread. Just a few lines from the dean's office per Chancellor Directive Medal recipient to remain unlisted until ceremony. Seating arranged accordingly. "Please confirm your attendance," I typed. Confirmed. Then I closed the laptop and unplugged it from the surge protector I shared with the lab's 3D printer. The night before graduation, it rained. Not a storm, not the kind that made headlines. Just that thin, constant southern spring rain, the kind that soaks through cheap umbrellas and metaphors. Alike, I stayed late on campus. Not working. Just walking. I passed the student center, the library steps, the vending machine that once gave me 2 granola bars for the price of 1. Little grace notes scattered between years of noise. As I circled the back of the old art building, I saw someone sitting on the hood of a borrowed car. Even from a distance, I knew it was Abigail. Her hair was wet. Her mascara had carved 2 perfect tributaries down her cheeks. In her lap, a crumpled envelope stamped, "Notice of Academic Dismissal." She didn't see me at first. I approached slowly, quietly, like I might scare her into disappearing. When she did look up, her eyes were wide with something not quite fear. "Don't tell them," she said, voice hoarse. I didn't answer. I thought maybe they'd let me walk anyway. If I kept smiling, if I wore the robe. I didn't respond. I didn't ask why she lied, or how long she'd been planning it, or how much money she'd rerouted into rented balconies and plastic cups with pineapple rims. She looked down at her phone. Amber's still texting about the after-party. Like none of this matters. I should have said something, anything, but the words felt irrelevant. Not cruel, not angry, just unnecessary. "I guess shame is still negotiable," she whispered. That was the last thing she said before I walked away. The next morning, the quad was all ready, half filled by 7:45. Folding chairs in tidy rows, honor cords gleaming, faculty robes fluttering in the breeze like prayer flags. My hair wouldn't hold the last pin, so I left it crooked. It didn't matter. I stood near the back with the engineering majors. My name wasn't in the program. There was no proud family post on social. My father had emailed the dean asking for special seats for Abigail. He wrote, "Our eldest daughter is receiving honors. We'd like to be near the stage." The dean's assistant replied politely, said the seating was general admission. Abigail's seat sat near the front, draped with her robe. My parents didn't notice it was empty. They waved. They smiled. They waited. They didn't know they were waiting for someone else entirely, and I didn't rush to meet them because I wasn't returning to be seen. I was returning so the silence would finally end. Halfway through the ceremony, the dean paused. She leaned toward the chancellor, who consulted a second clipboard, one that hadn't been on the podium earlier. A rustle moved through the crowd. Some parents shifted in their seats. A few students looked up from their phones. Then the dean stepped forward again. Her voice was steady, but it had a new edge. "We wish to acknowledge a correction to our previously published list. Abigail Hastings is not eligible for graduation and will not be receiving a degree at this time." It didn't echo. It didn't need to. The silence that followed did all the work. I didn't turn to look at my parents. I could feel the shift. Could imagine my mother's mouth half open, her hand frozen mid-wave. My father's fingers tightening around the program as if it might rearrange itself with enough pressure. A low murmur rolled through the seating rows. Not outrage, just discomfort. That collective flinch people do when the story they've accepted starts to tear at the seams. Then the chancellor stepped forward. But she said, looking up from the page, "Excellence often lives in quiet places." A pause. "Please join me in recognizing Engineering Senior Claire Hastings, recipient of the Chancellor's Medal for Academic Resilience." For a moment, no one clapped. Then a single burst of applause scattered tentative like rain, tapping on a tin roof. And then the rest followed. I didn't look up. I walked the aisle with my eyes on the path ahead, past rows of caps, proud parents, confused siblings. The medallion they placed around my neck was heavier than I expected. Its weight surprised me. Or maybe it was just the moment finally catching up. When I returned to my seat, I didn't glance back. I didn't need to. They'd seen. After the ceremony, I waited by the stone fountain near the south end of campus, the one where graduates traditionally signed their initials in chalk. I didn't bring chalk. I brought a copy of my research paper and folded it into my coat pocket. Old habit. I heard their footsteps before I saw them. My mother still in heels too high for gravel. My father holding the program like it had betrayed him. Abigail trailed behind them, clutching her robe like a costume she hadn't earned. "Claire." My mother said first, it wasn't a greeting, it was a question disguised as my name. Why didn't you tell us, she managed? I looked at her. Her eyes were rimmed in mascara shadows. I did, I said. You just weren't listening. Abigail lowered her gaze. Her foot traced a nervous circle in the dirt. I mean, we didn't know, my father added as if that made it better. I sent the paper to your email, I said, the one about adaptive load response and suspension bridges. You never opened it. That's not what we're talking about, he snapped. We're talking about your sister, about this morning. No, I said, voice calm. You're talking about embarrassment. I'm talking about patterns. They didn't speak. I pulled the metal from around my neck and held it level. This isn't just mine, I said. It belongs to every late shift, every skipped meal. Every night, I slept in the lab because my housing fell through and I didn't want to ask for help. My mother let out a breath that was almost a sob. Abigail took a step forward. So what? She said, her voice thin. You get to be perfect and I'm the villain. I looked at her. Really looked. I'm not perfect, I said. I'm tired, but tired isn't the same as broken. She blinked. Those 6 words landed harder than anything else I'd said. She turned her face away. My father folded the program, precisely as if he needed to control at least one thing in that moment. I just don't understand, he muttered. Why hide it? I wasn't hiding, I said. You were looking the other way. The silence that followed was different than before. It wasn't awkward. It was conclusive. I turned back toward the quad, toward the empty stage, toward the crowd that had already started leaving. Where are you going? My mother asked softly. To start something, I said. Something that doesn't require anyone else to clap for it. Then I walked. Not fast. Not defiantly. Just forward. I didn't go to the family dinner that night. They'd made reservations months ago under Abigail's name. Of course, a steakhouse downtown with white tablecloths and chairs that scraped the floor too loudly. I imagined the 3 of them sitting there trying to explain the silence on the ride over, trying to rewrite the morning into something survivable. I spent that night folding laundry in the corner of my apartment, the one off campus I shared with 2 nursing students. My phone buzzed once, a message from my mother. Proud of you. Let's talk soon. I didn't reply. 3 weeks later, I boarded a flight to Seattle. It was a one-way ticket. I had accepted an offer from a structural engineering startup, entry-level modest pay, but full autonomy and access to projects that actually mattered. Floating bridge systems, tide-resistant pylons, infrastructure that adjusted in real time, things that held weight. On my first day, I pinned the Chancellor's medal to a corkboard above my desk, not centered, just enough to be visible. Beside it, I taped the post-it I'd carried for years. Earn the dawn, and Professor Reed's note faded but intact. You are the quiet engine of progress. At lunch, I sat alone by the windows and watched gulls circle over the harbor. I pulled out a pencil and began sketching the early version of a load distribution model. Soft curves, tension lines, notes in the margins. It was the first time in years that my hands moved without exhaustion. Justice isn't a moment, it's a structure, something you build, slowly, beam by beam, until even the people who doubted the blueprint stand beneath it and call it shelter. In July, my mother emailed again. The message was longer this time. She wrote about refinancing the house, how they'd used part of what was meant for Abigail's tuition to settle debts. There was something apologetic in the phrasing, though the word sorry never appeared. She attached a photo of my father fixing a broken porch step. She called it progress. I forwarded it to my archive folder. Fall in Seattle came fast. The air turned sharp, salt mixed with pine. I bought a second-hand coat and began walking home from work, just to feel something shift between me and the pavement. On Thanksgiving morning, a letter arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside was a single photo. Abigail, hair pulled back, standing beside a brick wall, holding a Habitat for Humanity hammer. Her smile was sheepish. Below, she'd written, "Beams don't care who hammers them, they just hold." I pinned it beneath the post-it. Not as forgiveness, just as proof. One Friday evening, the company invited me to speak at my alma mater, Whitmore, during Alumni Week. I almost declined, but then I thought of the fountain of the chalk basin filled with names. I returned quietly. No fanfare. After my talk on adaptive systems and failure recovery, a student approached me. First year, nervous eyes wide. "Do you ever wish they noticed earlier?" she asked. "Your family, I didn't answer right away." Then I said, "No, I just wish I had stopped waiting sooner before leaving campus." I walked to the old fountain. It was freshly washed, names erased, a clean slate. I took a piece of white chalk from my bag and wrote 3 small letters near the base, CH. Next to it, I drew an anemometer, my first science fair project back in 5th grade. It had measured wind speed with plastic spoons and a straw. My father never came to see it. Wind motion balance, the things that moved without applause. As I stood brushing dust from my hands, I looked out across the lawn where once they had clapped for the wrong child, not knowing the other was holding everything together. They couldn't erase me now because I was never invisible, just inconvenient to acknowledge. Now I was unignorable, and I wasn't waiting for them to catch up.